Hello and welcome to this news hour. I'm Daniel Kasahon with the news. While the United States and its Western allies have continued to distort the reality in Ethiopia, friends of Ethiopia such as China, India, and Russia have opted to stand by this great nation. This is what has been reflected during comments forwarded by representatives of these countries at the latest United States briefing on the situation in Ethiopia. The nation expressed gratitude to the Ethiopian government for improving aid delivery and unfettered access of humanitarian aid. The nations also called upon the international community from poking their nose in the internal affairs of the country and uphold the principle of Ethiopia-led solution to the crisis. Our now is to look into the latest updates of the media reporting from the local and international media outlets. And here with me is our staff reporter, Sintayo Tamarata. Welcome to the studio, Sintayo.
Thank you, Daniel.
And what's the latest in the last 24 hours from the media you have accessed?
Okay, I do have just 2 points. These are just the UN Security Council meeting on Ethiopia and the situation in Tigray, as well as the South Sudanese solidarity with Ethiopia to combat Ethiopia's terrorists. Let me just focus on what the United Nations ambassador, just the US ambassador to the United Nations, Richard Mills, said about the Ethiopian context, as well as just what's happening in North Ethiopia. First, he just accused the TPLF on a number of issues, including the escalating of military intervention in the Afar and Amhara regions, and this also displaced hundreds of thousands of civilians from both Amhara and Afar regions, and the killings of also the civilians, as well as he also mentions that TPLF army group is just trying to attack Eritrean refugees in Tigray refugee camps, and also looting some NGO properties in Amhara as well as Afar regions, and just taking these properties to Tigray. But what one might question from Ambassador Richard Mills' remark is that he did not mention anything about the TPLF massacre in the Afar region, the Galikoma massacre, and also the killings as well as raping of girls and women in both in Amhara and Afar regions. The ambassador, however, just went on accusing the Ethiopian government on a number of issues, particularly of limiting the aid transportation to the Tigray region. By the way, it's not just the ambassador is not concerned about what is happening really in Afar and Amhara regions, but what is happening in Tigray. Particularly nowadays, the northern part of Ethiopia is in crisis. Over 500,000 civilians have been displaced so far, according to government resources. So now the issue on the ground is that the TPLF has not returned over 70% of the convoys that transported aid, humanitarian aid to Mekelle so far as of July. And also it is just the TPLF that started the war in Afar, the conflict in Afar region and Amhara region, and this conflict banned or restricted the travel of the aid convoys to Tigray region. So the ambassador must mention this, but he has not done that. And also currently the Ethiopian forces are not, the national defense forces are not in the Tigray region. It is the entire region is controlled by TPLF forces, and it is just questionable how he is accusing the Ethiopian government for unfettered humanitarian access in the region. Another point is that he is saying that the Ethiopian government deliberately limited the access to Tigray region, and they are just in fact demanding the Western corridor.
Is that credible?
No, it's not credible because it is, as I mentioned, the TPLF. There have been also reports by the UN humanitarian agencies that it is the TPLF troops that blocked the way, the eastern corridor through Afar to Tigray region. And when we see just the rationale behind this, the US was demanding the opening of the western corridor through Sudan. And here, the TPLF announced that it has 30,000 troops in Sudan.
It has a hidden agenda.
Sure, that's the point. And it is just the bringing or smuggling of these troops into Ethiopia, as well as just smuggling of armies that might be a threat to the Ethiopian national security. And it might also just give strength to the TPLF forces.
All right, let's come to the South Sudanese issue.
Okay. Well, South Sudanese President Salva Kiir was here in Ethiopia yesterday, and the visit was just arranged by the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and he announced his country's commitment to fight against TPLF, and he also accused TPLF for, just condemning the TPLF for the atrocities in both Amhara and Afar regions. These are just the issues, and we might just include more stories related with this in the evening time.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed expressed gratitude to the South Sudan President Salva Kiir for his comments to strengthen ties between the two nations. He made the remark following President Kiir's visit to Ethiopia yesterday morning. Thanks to you, President Salva Kiir, for the commitment to strengthen ties between our two countries, the Premier said. In our discussion, we have also explored the necessity to build on economic ties through infrastructure development, he reiterated. All weather friends like South Sudan are essential in our time of need, Premier Abiy Ahmed has tweeted. Meanwhile, President Salva Kiir Mayardit condemns the attack of the Northern Command by the TPLF while appreciating government's effort to protect constitutional order. Salva Kiir, who paid a one-day official visit to Ethiopia, also congratulated the people and government of Ethiopia upon the successful second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The office of the Prime Minister gave a press briefing Thursday on Salva Kiir's visit and other outstanding issues over the past week. Solomon Day reports.
Upon arrival at Bole International Airport, President of South Sudan Salva Kiir Mayardit was accorded a warm welcome from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed.
Brother, how are you?
The two have a wide range of talks on mutual and regional outstanding issues. According to Office of the Prime Minister, President of the world's youngest nation, Salva Kiir Mayardit, congratulated Ethiopia for the successful second filling of its mega dam and expressed solidarity with the government regarding the crisis in Tigray.
President Salva Kiir, on his part, congratulated the Prime Minister and the government for the peaceful conclusion of the 6th national elections. He also commended the successful second filling of the GERD and reaffirmed that South Sudan continues to attach great importance to the relations with Ethiopia. He condemned the attack of the Northern Command by the TPLF, which initiated an armed conflict, and also appreciated the government's efforts to safeguard the constitutional order, highlighting the importance of non-interference by external parties in Ethiopia's current domestic challenges.
Speaking about delivery of aid to victims of conflicts in the state of Tigray, Bilene said the government reduced checkpoints of trucks loaded with aid to create smooth transportation.
As of yesterday, August 25, 2021, 457 trucks have been deployed to the Tigray region, with 318 trucks that have already arrived, confirmed to have arrived. Previously, there was a lot of feedback and input from partners that there were several checkpoints and developments in relation to further enhancing and facilitating humanitarian delivery and humanitarian assistance in the region, is seeing the reduction of checkpoints from 7 to 3 to enable efficient transit of humanitarian assistance.
Though the government intensified its effort to support people affected by the conflict, Bilene stressed that the TPLF continued stealing and diverting aid, which is supposed to be delivered to civilians.
Food aid and medicine diversion by the TPLF fighters or groups that is intended for civilians. And we have seen over the past few days images that have surfaced showing international humanitarian aid agency food items in the hands of terrorists, which indicates that humanitarian assistance is clearly being siphoned away from civilians that need it. And this is being done by the TPLF.
The continued encroachment of the TPLF into the Amhara and Afar regional states resulted in mass killings of civilians, cattle, and destruction of properties. The number of people displaced due to the TPLF's incursions into these two regional states surpasses 500,000, the office noted.
Investing the scarce resource on reducing stunting has a huge benefit of return for investment that can save 55.5 billion birr or 16% of the GDP annual loss, President Salvador said. The president made the remark yesterday at the high-level launching ceremony of the Food and Nutrition Strategy and Sectoral Declaration expansion phase. The president stated that investing on ensuring food nutrition and reducing stunting will significantly contribute towards realizing the country's 10-year perspective development plan. According to the president, enhancing investment on efforts to reduce stunting would help the nation save 55.5 billion birr annually, stating that the expansion phase will be implemented in a total of 240 districts, including the 40 districts of the innovation phase. Salorg added the leadership commitment and working in collaboration at all levels is critical to realize the 10-year plan. Welcome to this news hour. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister of Ethiopia, Demeke Mekonnen, discussed over the phone with the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi on the current situation in the Tigray region, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and cooperation on economic engagements. The Deputy Prime Minister commended the fruitful Ethiopia-China strategic partnership that enhances cooperation in multidimensional ways. Speaking about the situation in Tigray, Demeke said the terrorist group is escalating the conflict by invading the neighboring Amhara and Afar regions. The unwarranted invasion has left many civilians dead and displaced, as well as destroyed private and government-owned properties, said, urging the government of China to call on the international community to condemn the terrorist act. In this regard, Wang Yi underscored that the TPLF should refrain from invading neighboring regions, abiding by the humanitarian ceasefire that was declared by the government of Ethiopia. He said China believed that the government of Ethiopia can handle its internal affairs, adding that China rejects undue interference in the internal affairs of Ethiopia under the guise of humanitarian concern. In their discussion about the GERD, the Deputy Prime Minister said Tunisia's attempt to submit a bipartisan resolution to the Security Council is unacceptable and expressed his confidence that China would continue to support the EU-led process over the matter. In this regard, Mr. Wang Yi reiterated his country's unflinching commitment to supporting the African Union framework to handle the GERD file. This is according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia. The global community is urged to put pressure on TPLF to stop attacks on civilians in Afar and in the Amhara region. This came during the discussion between the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the various stakeholders on the evaluation of discussion on the humanitarian aid progress after the unilateral truce by the Ethiopian government. In this context, Ethiopia commits itself to easing bureaucracy of humanitarian support delivery to northern Ethiopia. Stayot Amrat reports.
Ethiopian Peace Minister Mufariat Kamil has briefed participants of the evaluative discussion on the progress of the humanitarian assistance in Tigray after the unilateral truce by the Ethiopian government and after the TPLF attacks in the Amhara and Afar regions. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen explained TPLF has opened fresh attack in the Afar region, though it was drifted from the Amhara and Afar regions previously. He also indicated that the terrorist group is actively working to destabilize the entire Horn of Africa region, not only Ethiopia.
Look, today, including this morning, drivers are not ready to enter to Tigray along the Afar corridor because there is active and new attack along that area around Brale and Abala. It's clear. Sometimes international community representatives and others, they are always condemning government. But it's a challenge on the ground. They are still waging a new attack, escalation, and provocations on the ground.
State Minister of Foreign Affairs Redwan Hussein, for his part, called the international community to put pressure on the TPLF, as they have been doing on the federal government, so that the terrorist group can stop atrocities and fresh attacks.
The minimum that the international community must do is to force the other terrorist element to stop fighting, so that the people on whose behalf that they are fighting should get respite and at least gain these services. So, you know, when the government was pushing TPLF to Mekelle, we've been hearing an incessant and ear-deafening concerns everywhere in the world, in every corner of the world. Now, the tide seems to be reversed currently, and then we are not listening to those concerns anymore. When TPLF was being pushed, we've been receiving from every corner, from every partner, from every actor, from every donor, from every NGO, that everybody was concerned that civilians will be affected.
Ethiopian government plans to ease the bureaucracy on humanitarian support delivery to northern Ethiopia, but checking aid conveys whether they are free from unwanted items is a must, Demeke said.
On our side, we're committed to improve some bureaucratic process. We are committed to expedite the humanitarian support, the whole process. Perhaps it needs a balanced approach between the humanitarian support process and the security interest.
Due to the attack by TPLF after the unilateral truce, over 376,000 people have been displaced from Amhara and Afar regions.
There is spillover effect of the conflict, which heavily affected border areas of Afar and Amhara. As a result, around 376,000 people are displaced due to this provocation from TPLF, so that we discussed thoroughly how to support these displaced people who are at a number of shelters in Amhara and Afar regional states.
In a related development, the spokesperson of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, has given the ministry's bi-weekly press briefing to the media yesterday. In his presentation, the ambassador focused on political, economic, and citizen-centered diplomacy. The spokesperson said the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Demek Mokonus, had a meeting this week with leaders of humanitarian agencies and stakeholders operating in Ethiopia.
The representatives of the donor communities and international organizations raised issues related to flow of humanitarian relief. During the response, it was indicated that the government is dedicated to deliver relief to the people of Tigray. The government has been undertaking various attempts to overcome hurdles, bureaucratic hurdles. For example, there was an act at reducing the number of checkpoints. They were also assured that the government will closely cooperate with them so as to overcome these bureaucratic hurdles and other technical problems, because the government is committed to the relief supplies. However, it was emphasized that the relief supplies should be aligned with the national security of the nation.
The Deputy Prime Minister also gave a briefing on how the government of Ethiopia has been seriously taking humanitarian support to the Tigray region and facilitating all the necessary support to humanitarian actors despite the unwarranted invasions of the Amhara and Afar regions by the TPLF terrorists, Dina stated. According to the spokesperson, destructive actions of the irresponsible TPLF affected the normal lives of more than 3.5 million people in the Afar and Amhara regions.
The Deputy Prime Minister also expressed the current situation in the country. He explained the fact that the outlawed forces has continued attacking neighboring Amhara and Afar regions. They have conducted killings, lootings, and burning of homes and properties. That so many civilians have been displaced from Afar and Amhara region.
TPLF's latest foray into Amhara and Afar with the intent of speeding the disintegration of Ethiopia is a manifestation of the failure of the Greater Tigray scheme. This very scheme, which is inherited from European colonizers, is essentially anti-federalist in that it seeks to abolish regional and ethnic group over the above, striving to separate Tigray from the rest of Ethiopia. Take a look.
Upon seizing power in Ethiopia in 1991, the TPLF terrorist group was mandated to finish the dismantling of the Ethiopian state by destroying the remaining two factors, the Orthodox Christianity and the Amhara people. They have clearly and unambiguously indicated this project in their manifesto.
Simply, I would say TPLF is not a political organization, rather a mercenary and a force of destruction to me. And then from A to Z you can see, why do they dislike the Ethiopian Orthodox after all? Is it from the deep from their hearts that they dislike the Ethiopian Orthodox Church?
The partitioning of the country along ethnic and language lines was inherited from the Italian fascists who partitioned Ethiopia into 6 regions called region or Kilel in Amharic. They facilitated the secession of Eritrea from Ethiopia, a founding member of the UN. The TPLF traitors preached, advocated, taught, deceived and promised the few Tigray elites about the creation or birth of Greater Tigray that would have the following components. Besides the already annexed North Gondar, North Wollo and Afar lands, The future components of the Greater Tigray would comprise the highlands of Eritrea, including the ports, Benshangul-Gumuz region, including Gerd, parts of North Wello as far as Waldia and Lalibela, and parts of North Gondar, including Dabat and Wagara. The lowlands of Eritrea were planned to be annexed to Sudan as per the hidden agreement between Egypt, Sudan, and Greater Tigray. This is why, initially, there was no meaningful disagreement of the building of the GERD, since it was a common project among the three countries.
I don't know if I can say this is illusion. In the first place, had it not been for the messages they received from our historical enemies and the colonizers, I don't know, even inward, the project itself, no ordinary person with the right sense can accept this, let alone Tigrayans and Tigrayan elites. But I think this is illusionary.
Initially, TPLF was formed for establishing the Tigray independent republican state. Gradually, however, since this was not in a way implemented in Ethiopia, having understood actually the whole course of history, they preferred to control Ethiopia as the formers deliberately envisioned.
The TPLF traitors have always been instruments and implementers of the great conspiracy to weaken or dismantle Ethiopia with the help of Ethiopian mortal enemies. TPLF would have created chaos and misery in the Horn of Africa if indeed they succeeded in the war and assumed power again. Most of the confidential issues were kept secret within the top TPLF leadership, who are now either dead or arrested. Prime Minister Meles Zenawi used to belittle the benefit of having seaports to hide the truth of the future ambition of annexing the Eritrean ports to be components of what would be Greater Tigray. They have also attempted to overthrow President Isaias Afwerki to replace him by Messene Hagos in order to establish a puppet government in Eritrea. The location of the GERD was also carefully chosen to be in Benshangul-Gumuz to eventually annex the region to Greater Tigray after Benshangul succeeds using the fraudulent constitution. The saddest and the unfortunate side of this sophisticated sabotage, plot and conspiracy is not known by the silent majority of the great Tigrayan people who paid great sacrifice to preserve the integrity and sovereignty of Ethiopia. History remembers how the people of Shire fought against the invading force of Ahmed Grang in the Middle Ages and against the Italian invaders in the First and Second Italo-Ethiopian Wars. The Americans say, think big in your aspirations, but this aspiration must be just and realistic. Countries or groups that aspire to territorial ambitions unjustly fail miserably before realizing their dream. Great Britain, Greater Somalia, and now Greater Tigray ended in smaller territories than their original size. The project that started to realize Greater Tigray ended as smaller Tigray, smaller than we know it, since Badme and Zalambesa have been taken by Eritrea, according to the International Tribunal decision, and the Amhara and Afar lands that were annexed to Tigray legally by coercion have been retaken by their just and lawful owners, making the Greater Tigray project a failed project.
Don't come to Ethiopia and try to lecture it on where it wants to put its infrastructure. You know, they treat the Nile, this is the Egyptian government. I am not going to conflate the Egyptian people with the Egyptian government, but don't come and try to lecture Ethiopia on how it makes its infrastructure. Moreover, you have aquifers and other water resources which you haven't even fully taken advantage of. And you keep saying, well, the Nile is our life. Yeah, but have you considered these other resources, and have you considered how it's going to benefit the entire region? This is going to be remarkable when it finally the filling is all done and completed.
You're watching at this news hour. Ethiopia time and again calls for all respective bodies to pay due respect for the African Union-led negotiation process to ensure African solutions to African problems. But Tunisia is still pushing for the involvement of the United Nations intervention to push for the GERD binding agreement. So far, the outgoing non-permanent member of the African group at the United Nations Security Council has submitted a proposal to the Member States Security Council requesting a binding agreement on Ethiopia's mega dam. Ethiopia has made it clear that the ongoing AU-led discussions should be the only avenue for negotiations between the three countries. Ethiopia firmly rejects referring the GERD case to the United Nations Peace and Security Council by mobilizing the League of the Arab States, which would be unproductive. The Ethiopian Media Authority has urged media organizations operating in Ethiopia to adhere to their professional and ethical obligations of maintaining balanced and fairness in their reporting. The authority said that sticking to facts, avoiding generalizations and sensationalization is important. Noting that media coverage during conflict situation is a heavy responsibility, the authorities stress the need to fair and balanced reporting now more than ever. In further urges both public and private media organizations to adhere to their professional and ethical obligations to maintain balanced and fairness in their reporting at this crucial time. And finally, the African Union and Somalia have signed an agreement on the likely configuration and proposed mandate of the African Union's support to Somalia beyond December 2021. The mandate of the African Union mission to Somalia comes to an end in December, CGTN has reported. The African Union and Somalia have reached a broader understanding of what to expect after AMISOM troops pull out of Mogadishu. Discussions between the African Union and the federal government of Somalia are focused on consolidating the security gains made by AMISOM over the years. The United Nations and international partners have agreed on a transition plan to enable Somalia to gradually assume responsibility for security. The plan includes operational handover of responsibility for securing various locations from AMISOM to Somali security forces, local governance and economic recovery, that's according to the CGTN. To remind you the headline, Ethiopia expresses determination in improving aid delivery and unfettered access to humanitarian aid. That's all for this edition. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and stay safe.